All right, today we're breaking down a really significant strategic shift happening in the multifamily real estate market. We're looking at a whole new playbook that repositions clean air not just as a nice amenity, but as a core part of your capital strategy, something that actually drives revenue.
So if you're a developer, an owner, or a capital partner, this is probably the question on your mind. In a market this competitive, where does that next dollar of real, lasting value actually come from? And that's exactly what we're going to answer here. Okay, let's dive right in. First, we'll look at where the market stands right now. Then we'll get into the science that makes this entire strategy work. After that, we'll build the financial case, talk about market positioning, and finally, get into how you actually implement it. It's a really logical path, right? From the big idea all the way down to how you get it done.
All right, so let's start with the market itself, which honestly has reached a real inflection point. The old ways of competing are just not cutting it anymore, and a new approach, one based on performance infrastructure, is taking over.
For years, the developer's playbook was pretty simple, right? Compete on the stuff you can see. Quartz countertops, fancy rooftop lounges, the best fitness centers. And look, those things are still important. They're table stakes now, but they've become commodities. Everyone has them. The real differentiator now is shifting to something you can't even see, but that has a massive impact. Performance infrastructure like indoor air quality that delivers real, measurable results for residents.
So why is this all happening right now? Well, there are three really big forces pushing this change. First, hybrid work. It's simple. People are home more, which makes them way more sensitive to how their indoor environment feels. Second, you've got younger renters who are actively looking for spaces that support a wellness-focused lifestyle. And third, families are more concerned than ever about creating healthy homes for their kids. And listen, these aren't just passing trends. These are fundamental shifts in how people live, and they create a huge emotional reason to choose one building over another.
Okay, and this right here, this brings us to the absolute core of this playbook, the IAQ value stack. This shows you exactly how it all connects. It starts right at the bottom with our own biology. Cleaner air means better health and clearer thinking. That leads to a better resident experience, which lets you stand out in the market. That differentiation justifies a rent premium. And that premium, it flows right to your net operating income, which directly boosts your asset value and grows your equity multiple. It's this beautiful, cascading effect that turns a resident's well-being into real, tangible asset growth.
Okay, so let's get into the science for a minute. Because for any of this to make financial sense, it has to be based on real, measurable impacts on people's health and performance. So at the heart of all this is something called PM 2.5, or fine particulate matter. Basically, these are microscopic pollutants that can get deep into your lungs and even into your bloodstream. It's nasty stuff. And tons of research links long-term exposure to really serious health problems like heart disease and respiratory issues. The key takeaway here is that getting your indoor air quality right isn't just a nice-to-have. It has real biological consequences.
And that brings us to this key term, performance infrastructure. This isn't about luxury. It's about systems built into the building that literally make the space perform better for the people inside, improving their health, their focus, their overall well-being. Think about it. When your residents feel better and can think more clearly in their own apartment, that home is no longer just a box. It's a tool for a better life.
All right, so we've got the science down. We know why this matters for our health. Now let's do what really matters for developers and investors. Let's translate all of that into cold, hard numbers. This is all about the business case and how this strategy generates serious financial returns.
First, let's start with a principle we all know works. Take a look at this case study from Independence Realty Trust, their public REIT. They did a classic value-add renovation program, and the results were huge. We're talking a 52% jump in revenue, an 89% expansion in NOI, and a documented ROI of over 30% on the money they spent. This just proves the logic, right? Smart, targeted capital creates massive returns.
So the big question is, can we take that exact same disciplined financial logic and apply it not to a huge, expensive renovation, but to a much smarter, lower-cost investment in indoor air quality? And the answer is a resounding yes.
And this is our flagship case study. Let's talk about the Pearl. It's a brand new 139-unit development in Worcester, Massachusetts. And what's so important here is that they're putting this high-performance IAQ tech through the entire building, making it the perfect real-world test case for this whole strategy.
Okay, let's get into the numbers on this. It's pretty incredible. The total investment for the entire IAQ system at the Pearl, just over $250,000. Now hold that number in your head, because look at the value you create with really small, totally believable rent premiums. Just $50 a month more in rent creates almost $1 million in new asset value. You get that up to $100 a month, you're looking at nearly $2 million in value. That is a massive return.
In this table here, it breaks it down even more clearly. Just look at those multiples. It's kind of staggering. At $75 a month, you get your money back in just 2.4 years, and you've created 5.7 times your initial investment in value. Get to $100 and you're at a 7.6x multiple with a payback under 2 years. I mean, these are the kinds of institutional grade returns people dream of, but you're doing it with way less capital risk than a typical renovation.
Okay, so the numbers are they're undeniable. But how do you take that financial power and turn it into a real advantage in the marketplace? This is about competing on a whole new level.
Look, investing in IAQ isn't just an expense line. It's a strategic move that makes the whole asset stronger. It gives you pricing power because you're selling something real, something that performs. It helps keep your occupancy stable because your residents are happier and healthier. And you don't have to give away the farm with concessions because you're not just competing on price anymore. You're competing on the actual structural quality of the building, and that strengthens your entire financial profile.
All right, we've covered the why, the science, and the what, the business case. Now for the fun part, the how. Let's look at the actual tech that makes all of this happen.
It really comes down to two key pieces of technology, Vayu and PureLux. And I want to be clear, we're not talking about some clunky, standalone air purifier you plug into the wall. These are fully integrated systems, designed from the ground up to fit seamlessly into a multifamily building. They're built to be effective, but not in your face.
So first up is Vayu. It's got this really smart 4-stage process. First, it quietly pulls in the air from the room. Then, it hits a MERV 19 filter, which is basically medical grade, catching even the tiniest particles. Next, a sealed UV chamber zaps and neutralizes any airborne viruses or bacteria. And finally, it sends that clean, purified air back into the room super quietly. It's this powerful cleaning cycle just humming along in the background 24/7.
Then you have PureLux. And this thing is just brilliant. It basically combines two things every apartment needs into one elegant fixture. So it's a high-end, energy-efficient LED light, but it's also a medical-grade air purifier. It pulls in air, filters it, sterilizes it, and does it all from a standard light fixture. This is exactly what we mean when we say embedded infrastructure. It's hidden in plain sight.
So, what's the big payoff at the end of the day? Well, by implementing IAQ as infrastructure, you achieve true, defensible differentiation, something your competitors can't easily copy. This gives you premium positioning and real pricing power. It aligns perfectly with institutional ESG goals, and ultimately, it just creates a more durable, more resilient asset for the long haul.
And this right here is the ultimate takeaway. In today's market, where every single dollar of capital needs to be justified, investing in the environmental performance of your assets, well, it's no longer some optional enhancement. It is the strategy. It's how you build the assets of the future. Period.